It's 10:30. We'll get underway. Item 1, Sederunt apologies. Claire.
Thank you, Chairman. We've got 5 apologies this morning from Councillors Ferguson, Gilroy, McGregor, Nicholl and Stitt. Councillor Collins currently not present.
Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. Minutes of the 20th of October 2015 are moved.
Second.
Okay. Before we move on to item 4 on the agenda, I'd like to introduce Gary Copeland from Annan Rugby Club. Gary. You can sit down. Folk didn't usually stand for me anyway. They can't stand me, maybe. Only a few months ago, I was fortunate enough to be part of the panel that selected the winners of 10 regional coaching awards, all of whom are doing outstanding work in their own communities. And Gary was one of those. These winners then progressed to Sports Scotland National Coaching Awards, and I was delighted to hear a couple of weeks ago that Gary was chosen as the winner of the Young Person's Coach of the Year, recognising his outstanding work with young people. Sports Scotland then had the opportunity of putting forward 3 of their winning coaches to Sports Coach UK Coaching Awards, and only 6 days after collecting his Scottish award, he was named the Children's Coach of the Year in the UK at a ceremony in Manchester. And it's really a great pleasure to have Gary with us here today in his capacity as UK and Scottish Children's Coach of the Year. And we should not underestimate the magnitude of this achievement. And on behalf of the committee, I'd wish to congratulate Gary on his success and thank him for his commitment. Thanks very much, Gary. Can I now move on to item 4, and that's Scottish Event of the Year Award 2015. This report advises members of the recent award presented to Dumfries and Galloway Council in recognition of the success of the Commonwealth Youth Summit held in June 2014, and also the Special Recognition Award, which was received by Youth Beats and the World of Wonka for the impact on young people. At our last meeting, I indicated that I would arrange for the young people and volunteers to come along to this meeting so as we could show our appreciation. And I'm delighted that 3 of the Duke of Edinburgh participants wish to stand up. Neil Holden, Thomas Walter and Hugh Williams, along with Paul Chisholm, Gary Kirkcudbright and Sammy Smith, and the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scotland Supremo Barry Fisher are here today. We also have from the World of Wonka and Youth Beats, Thomas Nicholl, Kieran Logan, Paul Chisholm and Kelly Ross, with Lucy Forteeth, who wish to be upstanding. I'm sure to speak for all the members when I say events like the Commonwealth Youth Summit and Youth Beats are a great success due to tremendous hard work and dedication of the volunteers. And therefore, I would wish to place on record this committee's congratulations to all those involved with these events and wish the young people continued success for the future. So I think we should congratulate them on their achievements. I would also take this opportunity to formally present the Director of the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scotland with the replica trophy of the one that we received as a council at the recent awards ceremony. And if you're here, happy to present you with this. And moving on to the report, Kirsty here to answer any questions that members may have. Have we got any questions on item number 4? So we're happy to accept the recommendation, item 4. Thank you all very much. We move on to item 5, Service Review Community and Neighbourhood Services. The purpose of this report is to present the outcomes of the Service Review for Community and Neighbourhood Services. Scope for this review was agreed by this committee earlier in the year. The review is consistent with the work we are doing to reshape the Council, and in particular the establishment of the Communities Department, with its responsibility for providing services focused on improving the quality of life of individuals and communities. This review, and in particular the street scene model described in paragraph 10 of the report, provides us with the opportunity for our community assets such as parks and open spaces be looked after in partnership with local people. The review also takes account of financial challenges facing the public sector and emphasis we need to place in prioritising services and working in partnership with local organisations. I'm sure the committee will want to acknowledge work undertaken by officers, and in particular the review team, to bring forward these future service proposals, which are outlined in paragraphs 9.1 to 10.10 of the report. We've got Harry Thompson and Alan Mostyn here to speak to the report. Just like to welcome Harry formally to his first meeting of the committee since he took over his new responsibility. So have we got any questions? Archie?
Thanks very much, Chair. It's on the annualised hours side of things. Now, I've dealt with annualised hours before, and sometimes they tend to go a bit wrong. I just wanted to make sure that a lot of a discussion has been had, and how, if, and it's a big if this is one of the budget savings processes, that the discussion's been held of how they're going to manage this side of things.
Chair, the process for the service review involved a fair amount of discussion with workforce through the focus groups, and indeed I think annualised hours was one of the issues that was brought forward by focus group as an issue that needed to be resolved to make things work better. Annualised hours has led to issues during the winter months in particular now, where there's not enough resource to actually undertake some of the tasks that are required during the winter. So it's certainly been something that's been led to some extent by workforce.
Thanks, Chair. Just the success of this is going to be very much based on the buy-in of the communities that we work in, and the council going forward. We're going to rely on community councils and folk and community ever increasingly. I was disappointed that I had feedback with regards to the consultation with the community councils, and I just wanted some assurance that in the future we recognise the work that the community councils are doing now to try and be more resilient and take more responsibility for bits and bobs within the villages and communities, and just ensure that we engage with them fully and get them on board with this, because without them, moving forward, this is going to be very difficult.
Chair, I think the extent to which communities will need to be involved in taking forward the street scene approach in particular can't be underestimated. The approach is very much about securing community engagement and participation in the development and maintenance of our open spaces, and quite clearly part of the development of the Communities Department as a whole in the future will be about having good consultation and engagement with communities, not just within the neighbourhood services service, but across the whole department. So we'll be working within neighbourhood service, but engaging with the rest of the department to ensure that we've got effective communication with communities.
Yeah, mine's just a quick point of clarification on page 19. It's with relation to the indicator that states management and admin costs as a percentage of total staff cost. I see the highest in the group is 98.6%. Just want an explanation on that. Is that, I've heard of too many chiefs and not enough Indians, but is that an incorrect figure?
These figures are produced by APSI. I'll ask Fraser perhaps to correct us if he's got another interpretation, but I would imagine this will be a council which has externalised its maintenance, so that the only staff costs are management. That'll be right, I would think, yes.
Thanks, Chair. It's on page 32. You're looking at option 2, partnership with community payback. Strong message I'm getting from the general public out there in Dumfries and Galloway. We need to see more of the community payback people working within the communities. there is a number of jobs that they should be deployed, and as far as I'm concerned, we're not seeing very much visible presence for community payback. As we're a new community payback Justice Department in Dumfries, a new building. The public need to be seeing these people out there visible doing work in the streets. The number of weeds within various areas they could be dealing with. I know they can't spray herbicide sprays, got to be qualified to work in that sprayer, but there's other options we could be using that workforce. Public are quite keen to see that we've got a high presence of community payback in the area, and I'm quite keen to say, if you go to the United States of America, you'll know about community payback orders.
Jane?
Thank you. Chairman, looking at the challenge panel on page 159, a couple of things came out that they really pointed up, which was that the report states that alternate options and models of service delivery were reviewed, including externalisation and/or outsourcing. What are the results of the review of alternate options for service delivery? And that was to go into the finalised report. Now, looking through this report, which actually I think is an extremely thorough piece of work, and I do commend it, apart from maybe the point where the question is asked, what could we stop doing? And somebody has answered, stop answering elected members. So I thought that was probably not quite so helpful. But I go back to the whole issue of we've got to be rigorous. I don't think it's been properly explained that we don't run specialist teams for things like burials and ground maintenance. People are multitask. And I can understand how insourcing is a good thing to do because people are doing lots of different jobs and they're also reacting when we have emergency weather situations. But an ordinary member of the public reading this report might say to themselves, receiving a report from APSI on insourcing, and that's the sum total of what is evidenced here as to why we should or should not have different models, is not actually adequate. And I wonder if the officer would comment, please.
Chair, the question of alternative models is to some extent dealt with on pages 40 to 41, paragraph 19, headed up outsourcing. There's reference made to the existence of grounds maintenance contracts elsewhere with private sector firms, which has, in some cases, delivered unsatisfactory results. And the national picture in terms of outsourcing and indeed insourcing, as discussed in 1904 through to 1906. I think, as also mentioned in 19.8, there will be potential for encouraging potentially a social enterprise approach to some aspects of work currently undertaken by the council, and in particular the garden maintenance scheme, and would certainly be suggesting that as we move forward within the Communities Director, we'll look at potential for that further.
Could we add that into the recommendation that we get something back on that? Because I think that's quite important. We don't lose sight of it. It's a very tiny amount of mention in a very big report, Chairman. So possibly we might capture that at the end.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, firstly, there's obviously been a lot of work done to put this report together, and I appreciate the volume of work in that respect. It was just on the back of Councillor Carson's comment about the community councils, and I think we should maybe embed firmly in our diaries when community council elections are, because I think the consultation period overran that specific time, which only happens once every 3, now 4 years, for the community council elections. So it put extra strain on them, I think, to actually give a meaningful response, given that there was potential changes all over the region in terms of the makeup of community councils, who are, of course, volunteers. So I think that should be, I mean, if there's one time we could have picked, that was the time not to do it. But anyway, such as it is. So hopefully we'll learn from that. The other thing is that I welcome the work done to address the overtime issue in terms of the street cleaning, and I appreciate it's been looked at as to whether or not we implement 5/7, etc. And there's some reasons there as to what the best way forward is, but is that the intention to take on part-time people to cover that specific time, and is that to do away with the overtime and create employment at the same time?
Yeah, it'll be to try and reduce the overtime and create employment. So we're providing it instead of paying time and a half and double time, single time.
Through yourself, Chair, thank you. So just on that, you're saying reducing the overtime, but there's clearly a known quantum of overtime there. Are we looking at effectively saying, well, we don't actually need to do overtime because we can pay new part-time workers on plain time and actually deliver the same quality of service?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. Trying to actually make the service more efficient by reducing the quantity of work we're doing at the weekend, for example, and looking at an alternative way of actually providing employment. So we're increasing employment.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. There's a couple of things. Page 21, 10.2.2, regarding community assets and the community being able to influence the level of maintenance provided to the facilities within their community open spaces. My reading of that paragraph is that if communities want extra work done, for argument's sake, extra cutting the grass, they'll have to do that through the council. They couldn't actually go to a local company, and that relates to paragraph 19 on page 40. I specifically say local companies rather than the council. I wouldn't want any maintenance to go out with the local area, but there are plenty of local companies that have got the necessary equipment to actually cut grass. However, 10.2.2 actually suggests that it will have to be the council that does it. As regarding the planting of beds on page 33, 3.14, can I just say clarification that my understanding's correct in that either the community will take on the bed planting or we'll plant it in grass, and can also have the assurance that that will be for every town and village in the area. And it regards page 34, where it goes on about maintain grass areas. I know all the work that's been done in identifying the ownership of land, but I've had a recent inquiry in regarding 2 areas of land in Stranraer, which the council can't establish whether they own it or not. And the only way we can establish it is go to the Records of Scotland to establish ownership. There are at least 2 other areas of land in Stranraer that I could just about guess will be in the same position. Now, unfortunately, that's going to cost the council money to actually establish who owns the grass. But I have other community councils in the area complaining that those area grass are being cut by the council and they may not actually own it. So I would like permission from the committee that we actually go and establish who owns the areas of land.
Chair, in respect to paragraph 10.2.2, the paragraph essentially suggests future engagement and partnership with communities. It doesn't set out any definitive way forward in terms of the council undertaking the work. It will be very much for engagement with communities and determining the most appropriate local way forward. And in terms of land ownership, I think there are certainly areas of land in a number of communities across the region, not just in Stranraer, where there is perhaps some uncertainty as to the ownership of land that is currently maintained by the council. And it'll certainly be an issue that we need to look at.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just my second point regarding the bed planting.
Yes, there would be consistency in the approach across the region.
Thanks, Chair. Just a point Councillor McClung made, I've been mentioning several times to this committee about and Derek's having a wee giggle there, about the great problem we have since the transfer of housing stock and land that we still have a lot of quibbles over who owns what and who maintains it. And effectively, some of the areas don't get cut at all. But it was just a wee bit on the emphasis on community engagement has been put in community councils. We have several voluntary groups that do hands-on work apart from the community councils. I think it's important that we engage with them as well, Chair.
Chair, I would very much agree with what Councillor Symes says there. We've certainly done some work in terms of engagement with other councils who've gone down a community engagement route, and their view is quite clearly that the community council is not always the most appropriate body to engage with in terms of open space maintenance, and in fact quite often it's groups not directly associated with the community council that are most appropriate and bring forward the energy and ideas to actually transform the local areas. So it would be the most appropriate group coming forward from within the local area that would be the one that we would be engaging with.
Thank you very much. Can we move on to the recommendations? Happy to accept 2.1, 2.2. Okay. Move on to item 6, service review, strategic housing, revenues, benefits, financial advice, housing options and homelessness. The purpose of this report is to present the outcomes of the service review for housing revenues, benefits, financial advice, housing options and homelessness. Scope for the review was agreed by this committee earlier in the year. Similar to the previous review, this review is consistent with the work we are doing to reshape the council. Also provides us with the opportunity to progress the council's commitment to customer excellence. The review also takes account of financial challenges facing the public sector and places a lot of emphasis on joint working within the council and embracing partnership working with local organisations. In addition, the review acknowledges the importance of developing new forms of technology to improve customer service choice, whilst at the same time releasing resources to assist the more vulnerable customers. I'm sure the committee will want to acknowledge the work undertaken by officers and in particular the review team to bring forward these future service proposals which are outlined in paragraphs 6.4 to 6.10 of the report. And John Lynch and Lorna Campbell are here to present the report. Anything you wish to add to the report?
No, Chair, nothing further.
Okay. Happy to take questions.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I'm just trying to find the page where it talks about partners in the thing. And First Base is actually talked about not being, an organisation that actually helps the homeless side of things, but is a catalyst for helping some of the issues there. I think with my other hat on as the Armed Forces champion, at First Base does actually help the homeless situation. It's just for clarity of the report itself, and obviously First Base has done a lot of work with ex-servicemen over the years, and have helped in a lot of cases those ex-servicemen who are young and early service leavers. So just for clarity of the report to add that in, if that's okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a couple of things. Page 197, 7.6.2, A and B, the removal of discretionary relief. Can I just have it confirmed that no rural organisation or business will be left paying more than what they're actually paying at the minute, considering the problems that we have in the rural areas and the fact that the vast majority of Dumfries and Galloway is actually rural. Page 199, 7.9.2, can I just have clarity on how much that is actually going to cost to the Second Home Fund? Can't quite work out exactly how much we are going to be taking for the Second Homes Fund so that we can achieve the saving of 150,000 from its core. And as regards one of the appendices, you caught me too quick, Chair. It's on the report that's coming back. There are a couple that I would like actual clear information on as regarding what will happen. It's the community and customer services and the review opening hours, and there's also another one at point 10, and that one is, are we going to get absolute clarity on what that means for every community and customer services and I think it's the libraries or one of the other services, what that means to every actual one in the region, not just a blanket. Like, I would want to know exactly what's going to happen to the community customer services and areas in my ward specifically.
Thanks, Chair. With regard to the non-domestic rates discretionary relief, we have done some initial reviews of cases that are actually in receipt of the discretionary relief, and there is a significant number that will be entitled to small business bonus scheme instead of that. However, I can't give a guarantee at this point that no one will be impacted to pay more rates. There will be, from our initial search of the records and what the information we have, there will be some commercial premises that may be charged more in the way of rates.
7.6.2, paragraph A, suggesting that 7 properties of, I think they must be community halls, would have to pay the full charge. Now, have members been advised which ones these would be? Are they in their wards? I have to say that I think to find this suddenly arriving on a community's doorstep without knowing about it would be quite worrying. It may be that I picked this up wrong and that there's some relief that can be organised, but maybe you could help me, because in essence, which ones are we talking about? And the second issue that I have been approached about is the financial education issue, Chairman. And I would like to have some assurance that education services have said that they absolutely can pick up to the same level and quality and standards of financial education that was provided, that they can do that. I hope they can, because I think it's absolutely essential that that sort of education goes in early. So there are two issues there. I'm sorry to conflate them.
Again, with regard to the non-domestic rates, we can provide, we could again look at our current analysis of properties and provide committee with a list of premises that will be impacted. So we can provide that. With regard to the financial education, my understanding is that from the discussions we've had, we've still got to formalise with education the actual process should this be agreed. My understanding is there is a commitment to continue to provide financial education to the current standard.
It's back to the non-domestic rates. Recently, the Scottish Government suggested there might be some devolution of the collection and distribution of non-domestic rates. Has that been taken into consideration in this report, or is it something that you might have to review if that comes up in a future budget? Or?
As part of the Community Empowerment Bill, local authorities have been given the power to add further areas of discretionary relief. While it's been taken into account, I think what was a recognition in this report is the discretionary relief schemes we currently have in place have been there for some considerable years, and we know there's a lot of these properties would be entitled to small business bonus, so which is not a cost that would be incurred by the local authority. I think, like all these discretionary relief schemes, they will be subject to review, and as the council changes and as businesses adapt, there will be opportunity to review these.
Thank you, Chair. Just lost my place. Yeah, I'm referring to page 171 of the report, Housing Options and Homeless, and particularly to the Housing Options Advice. And I've asked John this in the past. If we look at 431 during 2014, if we gauge it on that, the department dealt with 633 homeless applications, and then it goes on to say in the same period 860 approaches for advice and assistance through housing options were made. I think I've asked this question in the past, that there is a consistency of service being provided, perhaps moving away from just accepting an application as a homeless application, but given proper housing options advice. I relate that to page 257 of the report, and then it's looking at the evaluation of housing support, and that paragraph talks about consider for reduction or termination of services, and it's really taking those figures more so to the 860 approaches in housing option advice, whether indeed that there is scope within that to reduce some of the services, more so to the new structure in the strategic needs group, and whether, you know, we're getting the proper buy-in and feed-in to the strategic needs group in terms of people's circumstances, and that there should be some special consideration given for them as special housing cases. And that's my first point, Chair. If I could come back, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, in terms of the housing options approach, obviously I've had discussions with Councillor Scobie on this previously. The current situation is that the 4 area homeless teams operate to the same policies and procedures, so there should be consistency. In terms of the development of a housing option service, that's very much being led by the Scottish Government, and there's currently some draft guidance that has been finalised by the Scottish Government that we understand will be issued imminently, and each local authority will need to incorporate the new guidance, and that will be part of the improvement work going forward in terms of developing the homelessness service. So there's a local context and there's a national context to that. In terms of linking that to the housing support and the specific proposals, it doesn't particularly cut across the proposal for the termination of the Home Scotland contract, because that's around tenancy sustainment rather than dealing with outright homeless and crisis cases. What it will need to be considered, though, is in the context of the next stage of the recommissioning of housing support and advice services, and that will need to sit alongside whatever improvement plan the council agrees as part of the homelessness inspection to make sure that the housing support and advice services are addressing the issues that the regulator has identified in the upcoming inspection. So it's really a matter for that kind of second phase rather than the specific termination which sits to one side of the homelessness issue. In terms of making sure that there's proper engagement through the Common Housing Register and the Strategic Needs Group, absolutely assure members that that's happening. We've now got a newly established Common Housing Register board, which involves all the chief execs or appropriate directors from the RSLs sitting with us to make sure that the Common Housing Register and everything that sits below it is dealt with as an absolute priority.
Yeah, thanks, John. Just on the advice that John refers to there, brings me on to my next point, and it's particular reference to page 192 and other reference made in the document in 6.8.2 in terms of partnership working. And again, I relate that to the 6.2 paragraph in page 186 in terms of the outsourcing, and similar to that in page 198, the downward trend of money advice. Given the economic climate out there and the various appeals that's reference has been made to in the document, are we still, you know, in terms of outsourcing and so forth, are we is it the intention to maintain the independent sector so that proper independent advice is being given on many aspects of housing, both in appeals, money advice and everything else, so that it is truly, I know there's reference made that only one authority, there are other authorities who do participate and fund to a great extent the law centres. We do other sources, but is it still the intention of this committee to make sure that we provide that external advice so that it is truly independent?
Thanks, Chair. I think the response to that is that the specific commission that funds external general money and debt advice is not strictly speaking part of the service review. But there's no suggestion that the council would not continue to fund the independent advocacy. What this review talks about, again, I'll go back to the previous answer, is looking at the commission services through essentially the housing support and advice budgets and looking to make sure that they are properly aligned with the strategic needs of the service. And that will essentially be set down by the regulator. The housing regulator will advise what the council needs to focus on in relation to housing and homelessness advice. And it's that commission budget that will need to be realigned. What I think you're talking about is independent money advice and advocacy, which sits apart from this and is not part of this controllable budget and is not part of this, strictly speaking, not part of this service review. I hope that answers the question.
Am I correct in what John's saying, that we will return to this once the regulator has looked at it and the review or the inspection has been carried out there?
Thanks, Chair. Well, in terms of the commissioning of housing support and advice services, what's happened in the previous two commissions is that the report on which contracts are involved in that recommissioning process, methodology, the strategy, has all been agreed through the housing subcommittee. So this will need to be taken forward through further committee reports to the appropriate committee, whether it's housing sub or this committee. I think we need to take advice. But yes, there needs to be further member consideration about how those services are commissioned with a reduction of the base budget as proposed to £300,000. But the detail of which contracts are involved in that, how that's taken forward, what the strategy is, what the specification is for those contracts, will be subject to further member consideration.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of points. One was to do with appeals on paragraph 4.3.1 in the report. It mentions that there's a number of appeals against decisions in terms of homeless applications. I don't know what that number is, but are we going to ensure that that independent appeal process is still available in terms of any changes? Second point would be the hub idea in terms of a kind of option for how we deliver services, or be a one-stop shop, if you like. I would like to, I'm sort of interested in the idea, but I would like to see something like that recognises where partners, if appropriate, or those who deliver the best results in terms of the outcomes for the people who need the service, are given the appropriate importance in being part of such a hub, rather than first looking in-house and then seeing who does. I think there's too much scope for duplication when certainly some partners specialise in giving certain types of advice, if you like. And the third thing would be the outsourcing. I think in section 6.2, and this is where I'm a wee bit confused about the scope of the review, it does talk about the other Scottish councils who don't outsource certain things, but I'm just sort of wondering about the money advice provision, which we do kind of outsource, but we have a bit in-house as well, and we're talking about doing away with that and then using our outsourced partners, but there's other local authorities that clearly outsource that provision, so it's just really to get a clearer understanding on what we do or don't do and what other local authorities do or don't do in terms of the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I can respond to Councillor Thompson's first query, and then we'll deal with the second two. In terms of the reference to the homelessness appeals process, that was just to give context to the amount of business that the service deals with. It's a statutory requirement to make sure that there is an appeal process as part of the homelessness process, and that will remain unchanged. So there's no suggestion that that gets changed. Indeed, we can't change it because it's a prescribed process that we have to follow. I'll ask Tony to answer this.
With regard to the hub idea, I think it's part of the review, the initial emphasis was looking at the current service services that were being delivered within the service review in homeless strategic housing. I think there was a recognition that, especially in the Dumfries model, that these are delivered over 4 areas. So the hub idea came to actually pull these together. But there is a recognition in the report that that there may be there is room for specialist delivery and working with partner organisations, providing support rather than these services. Expanding further is look at our partner organisations and how they can supplement and enhance what's already provided within these services and how we can pull them together in one area. Because what became very evident through the review is traffic and double handling there is with some customers with complex needs, and if we can pull it together in one area. With regard to the paragraph on outsourcing, probably that was predominantly referring to the current service deliveries, the main ones of strategic housing, homeless residents and benefits. That's where that paragraph mainly relates to. However, we are aware that the money advice provision is a small amount provided in-house and an amount provided in the external contract. Therefore, when we looked at that provision and the demand for the provision, it had reduced, albeit there has been a slight upturn in the last 2 to 3 months. That with the current arrangement with the committee, there was enough within there to actually stop the in-house provision to just review that. However, that commission again is up for review and will continue to review the actual demand for the services.
Thank you for that. So just on the final point, although it wasn't maybe the main element of the review, if you like, it's still part of it, and other local authorities do outsource that provision, as do we. Acknowledging that the report flags a sort of upturn in the amount of people now using, for example, the DACA service, by signposting to that, with that being the intention, are we going to recognise that pressure in terms of how we measure what the terms of our commission will be in future, given the level of demand, as it were?
We do regularly monitor the demand for the services, and looking at the trend over the last few years, even with the upturn, it was still below what the targets were for the last year. So it was felt, looking at it at this point, there was still scope within that commission to absorb even with the upturn in the last few months. But as I said, that's constantly under review, and there is always regular reports on demand.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for letting me back in. It's just to sort of clarify the point I made earlier in the position, page 258, about the first base side of things. It's not a specialised service, nor does it prevent homelessness. In fact, in the page before, it talks about food parcels. It is, in fact, they do some services with the ex-forces, as I said before. But it says any cuts to this budget would mean the project would no longer be able to operate. I think the service that we get from First Base, certainly myself as the Armed Forces champion, and after the signing of the Community Covenant side of things from this particular council, we need to protect that because they do some work with homeless ex-forces personnel.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to reassure Councillor Dryburgh, we'll certainly take account of that. I think the point we were making in the report is that we specifically fund First Base for the food parcel service, although we're aware that they do lots of other things as well. And they certainly have got an element of providing support for homeless clients, but that's done through other sources or informally. Again, picking up the previous point about the recommissioning of all these advice and support services, that will be one of the things that we need to look at and make sure that going forward, proposals around contracts could more explicitly include that kind of work, because there's a lot of informal work done by some providers that we don't pay for. We need to acknowledge that and set that.
Thanks, Chair. Just in page 170 at the bottom, 4.27 on scheme assistance, I think there's some really good supports there, but I feel that I got a lot of constituents coming to me that aren't aware that these things are available. I wonder what sort of publicity is done to let the people in the community know that these services are there and how to access them, especially in the more rural areas. Because I've had people come to me that really access these supports and be quite vital to them, but they weren't aware that they were there. So my question is, what publicity has done, and is there anything more that we could do to get word out to the community that these are available, maybe through carers or that as well?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, we certainly have over the years tried to promote the range of services provided through the scheme of assistance, and the uptake is very good. In terms of the care and repair, handy van and food train, extra services, they will be transferred to the new health and social care arrangements as of April. They were mandatory elements to transfer as part of the new integration arrangements. That will give us an opportunity to have another push in terms of making sure that all clients are aware that those services are available. Certainly the Trusted Trader scheme has been given lots of exposure. It's on the front of the council's webpage. There's lots of adverts running. We try and promote them as best we can. We can always do more. It's always constantly under review, and we look to do that. Maybe just going back to a previous question, I think Councillor McClung raised, which we didn't have an opportunity to address. The question raised at 4.2.8 is in relation to the total amount of second homes money that will now support the scheme of assistance. That will be subject to a report to the Housing Subcommittee in January, because each year the subcommittee have to confirm the allocation for the next year. But it's looking like it will be somewhere in the region of £600,000. But the detail of that will be to a report next month.
Just to finish off my question, I think the problem is more in the rural areas that people aren't aware of these services.
We'll take that on board and make sure that we try and promote that throughout the whole of the region.
Okay, thank you all very much. Can we accept recommendations 2.1 and 2.2? Jane?
Chairman, I don't know whether it has to be an action, an officer action, or how it should be considered, but I have to say I go back to the financial education provision. I think it's important that we as a committee know how it is handed over and what resources are being used. So I think it would be very helpful to have something to come back to us to help us do that.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to assure all members, the discussions at this stage have very much been had between myself and the Director, Colin Grant, in relation to that, the importance of that transfer happening. If members take that course of action, it's clearly acknowledged that that is to be handled sensitively and appropriately with all staff involved. I personally have met the staff from the financial inclusion team in the last few days to ensure that they've heard first-hand from us the proposals and reassure them, because quite clearly they are a committed group of staff who are doing an excellent job. So what I'm happy to do, Chairman, is provide members with more details of how that would work before full council in February. Happy to provide members of this committee with that information.
Happy with that? We want item 7, Director 6-month assessment of business plan performance. Report provides members with the Director's assessment of progress in the first 6 months of delivery of the 2015 to 18 business plan for community and customer services. Also includes information on health and safety performance. Clear from the information provided, there's a vast amount of work progressing to ensure delivery of the business plan, and this is summarised in paragraph 3.1, which indicates 37 out of a possible 45 key performance indicators are on track. And Derek and staff are here to answer any queries. Anything to add, Derek?
Thank you, Chairman. As you indicate, the performance report does provide members with plenty of information in relation to performance. I've just acknowledged that obviously 70 of the 70 indicators, 21 are in fact reported annually, and just to assure members the reason for that is these rely on information that is actually only available on an annual basis. So that's the rationale for that. Might be worth just drawing out some key highlights. For example, in the business plan, we note the projects are on target. For example, the Kirkcudbright Art Gallery project, and particularly pleasing, the report on providing looked after children and young people and care leavers with opportunities to participate in a range of leisure, culture and community activities was in fact completed ahead of schedule, and I know that's something that members of this committee have been particularly keen to see developed. We're also aware we attempt to ensure we're making a significant contribution to the Council's commitment to anti-poverty, and performance indicators and relative to revenues and benefits are clearly very important. So Council tax reductions, crisis grant, community care grant processing times and assisting clients with debt advice are all key performance indicators within this document, and they're performing to the standard, and that's a reflection of the staff involved. We also acknowledge there are areas for improvement, and I would specifically highlight the work we are doing with the Homelessness Service, which was indeed the subject of a detailed report to this committee only a few months ago. The two exception reports provide members with details of the improvement action we're taking in relation to these indicators. We've also taken the opportunity to refresh the business plan to ensure it remains fit for purpose, and as members will see, Appendix 4, Section 1.1 provides members with details of some amendments proposed to the business plan. Finally, Chairman, I would just draw members' attention in relation to the exception report on staff who have completed an annual performance development review. I recall this was something this committee expressed concerns about a year ago. There's clearly still a gap between our performance and the target that we have set. However, I would want to highlight that for the corresponding period last year, as you'll see from that exception report, the percentage of staff having had a PDR was in fact 65% at that corresponding time a year ago. We've now increased this to 89%. And I would suggest this improvement is certainly testimony to the commitment of the management team to employee engagement, and I believe supports the expectation of elected members that we value our staff as our greatest asset. Thank you, Chairman. Happy to take any questions.
Yes, but perhaps the first thing I'll do is actually challenge Derek on something as part of the Health and Safety Committee. And looking at the appendix on health and safety on page 415, at the bottom of the page, it says Director actually seeks sample demonstration of safety compliance during planned service, council premise visits, etc. And it's not due to start the 31st of March 2016. Perhaps I could suggest to the Director it's part of your everyday job anyway. Never mind having it as part of a plan, because visiting these sites, of course, is part of the management role to make sure that any health and safety issues are raised with the appropriate line managers.
Thank you, Chairman. Always happy to take good advice from Councillor Dryborough, and indeed at a recent visit that I was on, I was reminded of the importance of wearing high visibility jackets, so I can assure the member that that point's taken on board and will embrace that as ongoing rather than a specific target. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe better wear a flak jacket the next time. Finlay?
It was just a very quick comment. I welcome the Director's addressing the issue that was raised about this committee last year with regards to the staff. I think there's a huge, there's knock-on benefits from making sure these interviews are all carried out, and I just welcome that we've made these improvements.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just going through the business plan. Obviously, in recommendation 2.4, we've been asked to look at changes to project dates, etc. But reading this before you get to 2.4, there's an awful lot of targets there that are overdue, due this month, or are only fractionally complete and they're due in March next year. Obviously, these will be the ones that feature in the proposed extensions and change of deadlines, but reading this report without that additional information or decision yet to be made technically, you know, that looks like an area of concern because these aren't getting progressed. So I know that this is the committee that decides that very issue, but they're all green flags. So I would have been expecting a report that was flagging this up and then recommending we need to review these deadlines.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Councillor Thompson. Like most members, this is a bit of a tomb, and therefore only this morning I was putting together the final bits of paper in terms of own preparation, and in fact, recommendation 2.4, you're quite right. What I would highlight specifically is page 295, 296, 297, which is Appendix 4, paragraph 1.1, which I said in my introductory comments. That's the specific changes that we are proposing. So for the openness and transparency, that's why I highlighted that in the opening remarks. That's the proposed changes that we are suggesting, and that's based on the evidence we have to date. So members would be taking that decision with the fullest of information.
Yeah, no, I fully appreciate and understand why you introduced the article like that. But before we get to that, I think the information presented to us should reflect where we're at now, and then effectively ask for those dates, as you've outlined in the report, on the pages you specified, to then be revised. So I think if I'm looking at a deadline of September 2015, that's clearly passed. The report shows a green flag. I would have expected that to be amber or red. And then, obviously, with your added explanation, that's the rationale why these deadlines need to be moved. So it's maybe just an understanding of how a report is presented. Thank you.
More than happy to pick that up specifically with the member, but certainly the intention is to ensure members have all of the information. I'll look to colleagues, but certainly Appendix 4, as best of my knowledge, what it attempts to do is ensure we're telling you on the one hand what the current position is and why we're making a rationale for the change. So I hope that fullest information is there, but as I've said, it's a bit of a tomb, so if there are points that need clarified, happy to draw these out with the member.
Yeah, Chair, it's reference to the exceptional reports on page 286 and 287 with regards to elected members' inquiry service, EMIS. While I note that there is an improvement being made, we are still under the alert status in both. You know, the figures are there before us, so I don't need to go over them. But it's to the improvements that are being made. And while there's reference being given here in terms of where a member's inquiry requires more than 3 days, sometimes when it goes in even to the 15 days, we are not hearing when that response, a substantive response, will be received, nor indeed is it reported in terms of, you know, the extent of time some are taking to respond, which can be well beyond the 15 days. And I don't expect in some that they will be resolved in 15 days, but it's to try and get a quick response and solution to many of the queries and inquiries being made. There is reference to how we are going to improve in both pages. 2015-16 will investigate this further and solutions will be identified. Any idea what these solutions are going to be, other than people to say, look, get back to the member, because behind the member there is someone out there who is a customer, an award member seeking information.
Thanks, Chair. We've obviously got a separate item on EMES this morning as item 13 on the agenda, so quite happy to answer it at that point or go into the detail now, whatever the preference is, Chair. Certainly, I think if members look at the performance of EMES generally this financial year, it's certainly been an improving situation, which I think is very much in recognition of the feedback we received from members the previous time this issue was considered and debated. Certainly in no way complacent, and as we've previously said, always committed to try and improve the responses back to elected members. The 3 and 15 days are simply there down as part of the standards members should expect. If responses that are robust and detailed can be given well within those days, that's certainly what we strive to do. And I think the relatively small number of inquiries that aren't dealt with within the timescales, when you actually look into it, it's where an officer hasn't taken ownership and responsibility for pulling together what can very often be a complex multi-department or indeed multi-partner response. What we have now done to try and deal with that more proactively is ensure that there's always, at the very least, a service manager that is responsible for that, as well as a member of his or her team. In the past, it could be a relatively junior member of staff that's expected to pull that together, and there simply hasn't been that quality assurance sign-off from a more senior member of the management team to do that. I think that's certainly one of the positive steps that has seen this improvement occurring. So I think that's quite happy to get into more of the detail at item 13, Chair, but that's certainly one of the steps that I believe has taken a positive approach to this.
Chairman, it's the changes that we're going to make to the business case, the business plan, in Appendix 4, page 295. And it's about the number of looked after children. We're going to adjust those so that it's about information and participation. I think we've got to be really clear about what we're trying to do here. It's about the numbers of children, actual children, individuals who take part, and who is going to be responsible for driving this forward, because it's a usual thing. It's like any parent, who's actually going to be responsible for giving that child the confidence to go and actually participate and take part. So it's a mixture of, is it the same child going every week to the same swimming pool, and we count it like that, or are we actually focusing down on the individual children concerned, and how would we know?
Thank you, Chair. In response to the member's inquiry, the Leisure and Sports Service are represented on the corporate parenting group, and it is through my member of staff on that group that we are liaising with social work predominantly and education, identifying all of the looked after children or care leavers that we have within our region, which obviously fluctuates on a regular basis, but approximately that figure can be around about 400. What we are currently doing is ensuring that every one of those looked after children or care leavers, through the appropriate agency worker that is supporting them, has the access and is supported to apply for our free DG Access card that would allow that individual to enter any of our leisure facilities or activities and take part in that free of charge. So our target is specifically to ensure that every one of those, approximately 400, has access to that card to enable the free provision.
I think that gives me the information I need to take this on further. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? I'm happy to accept the recommendations. Oh, Archie?
Chair, maybe just to add a further recommendation as a thank you to the Director for going out to each of the wards and finding out what the particular issues were in those wards. Certainly the feedback from the community councils in my ward in particular was it was welcomed. It was good to see a senior manager actually out in the wards and try to find out what the issues were. So as a part of that recommendation, 2.5 is to thank the Director for visiting each ward.
I would take. Chair.
Just to let you know that the Kirkcudbright Art Collection has received national recognition, and an award was presented yesterday. But because the information was embargoed, it was too late to include in this report, so we'll get an update and bring the trophy along. So that's now the third collection within the region that's got national recognition. Our archaeological collection has recognition, and so does our Burns collection, which is part of the National Burns Collection. But we'll bring a full report to the next meeting. It's not possible to do so today. Move on to item 8, which is the Community Customer Services Revenue Monitoring Report. This provides members with assurances that progress is being made by the service in securing savings on a recurring basis. As previously reported to the committee, it is recognised there have been delays in achieving savings, which have resulted in ongoing pressures for the service. Items 9 and 10 on the agenda provide members with the opportunity to consider actions in place to deal with these pressures. And anything to add, Director?
Thank you, Chairman. Just wish to reassure members to take this very seriously, and indeed, as I've said in the report, all reasonable and proportionate steps are being taken to ensure we deliver a balanced budget at the end of the financial year. Given the projected local government financial settlement, I am particularly mindful of the importance of ensuring our budget is fit for purpose and provides an accurate reflection of both our expenditure and indeed our targeted income, and nothing else to add at this point, Chairman.
Any questions on the report? Happy to accept the recommendations? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item 9, budget and income pressures, leisure and sport and cultural services. As highlighted in the budget monitoring report, the proposals contained within this report are focused on redesigning services in order to deliver a balanced budget in leisure, sport and cultural services. Harry Hay, Colin Freeman and Lee Seaton are here to answer any queries. Anything you want to add to the report?
No, thanks, Chair.
Any questions? Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. My third question under item 6 actually related to this one. It's the proposals that will require customer engagement, the premier pricing, leisure and sport, and the action 10 and 13, which is the proposals that will need to be consulted upon for leisure facilities, customer services over time under the recommendation 3.3. That's where I would like to see, when that report comes back, the exact result of what that will mean for every facility.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I can assure members that's very much the intention when we bring the report back to the March meeting of this committee, that the period of engagement we do during the month of January will very much reflect what the feedback from the customers and non-customers are, and where there are proposed price increases or amendments.
Thank you. Just a point of clarity on page 323, which I think is a good action, volunteer recognition, incentivisation, leisure use, with regards where it says the rationale in the centre paragraph, the proposal provided 25% admission discount to volunteers who deliver 25 hours of volunteer and supported service delivery. Totally agree with that, but over what period of time are you looking at the 25 hours?
Thanks, Chair. Apologies, member, for not making that clear. It's anticipated that that's over the 12-month period. We have some volunteers that obviously offer their time very regularly and others that just do it on a termly basis.
Do we? I should have asked this earlier on. I'm sorry about this, but do we actually charge for archive inquiries, genealogy and that sort of thing?
Chair, not at the moment, and I think in a separate report, when we've been talking about the proposal to develop the regional archives and local studies programme, had that been at the stage that we'd hoped in terms of a funding position, that was certainly something there's huge demand for, and we felt that it was something that if it was approached in a more commercially sound basis, that people are actually willing to pay for expert input and help, because if somebody's coming to an area, particularly out with Dumfries and Galloway for a period, it's amazing what you can get done within a couple of days with a support member of staff there that knows their way around the archives and information. So it's something we're certainly wanting to look at actively.
Just a question. Is there any tie-up with the transfer of some of the leisure and sport to education, so some are sports halls and whatever, where the budget pressures on education and regarding staff and janitorial staff opening up buildings could actually have an impact on the budget that's now fully under your control? I'm asking that question in the back of somebody approached me during the holidays recently, where they were unable to book school facilities, a school hall, because of, at the end of the day, the janitor, they weren't happy with them paying overtime to open and close it during the holidays, and leisure and sport then had to look to book other facilities. Is this something we're going to see where there's some pressures between leisure and sport and education with regards to staffing costs?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the leisure and sport portfolio as it is just now, when those services transfer to children and young people in lifelong learning, the budgets in their entirety as they are at this moment in time are anticipated to transfer across. So where leisure and sport deliver and operate a facility, it would continue to be leisure and sport that would operate that facility. I think the example Councillor Carson's maybe giving is in relation to a booking that would be through the school lets process, which at this moment in time, unless any proposals are developed further through another course of action to integrate what is currently school lets within leisure and sport, and there are no plans for that at this moment in time, then I don't believe that would be an issue. I am very minded and happy to speak either in that individual case or in any case where we can support any community organisations who have got a desire in the sports hub model to look to try and access facilities within an evening slot, if they are minded to come together as a constituted grouping of community sports clubs, then there are options and examples across Scotland where that can be done, but it requires obviously a significant community commitment.
I'm not sure if that quite answers my question. To be honest, I'm not just quite sure what the question is either. I'm trying to ascertain, if you're trying to roll out your operation, your department with leisure and sport, in the future with the school lets, do you see it becoming more difficult because ultimately a different department looking after the school lets have got to look after their budget as well? Is there going to be a time where you try to book something under education where the costs or the difficulties of doing that make you actually have to look somewhere else, and that would put added pressure on your budget? Does that make it clearer?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, it helps. At this moment in time, where we have examples of school lets, which absolutely with the transfer school lets would become the responsibility and proposed to be managed together with leisure and sport more closely. At this moment in time, there are examples where the school let process may require to be subsidised because if the janitor is out for a full evening and there is only one booking in, then there's not enough income to offset that cost. As we move forward, what we would very much, with the pressure on budgets, be looking to do is to try and ensure that we're subsidising and operating our facilities in essence, to wash their face as very much as possible. Now, how that could evolve moving forward, I wouldn't say at this moment in time here. We would need to review the staffing numbers where we've got leisure and sports staff that could potentially support and assist with the school let process, or whether we can look to do a better merging of the staff that we have available. But certainly mindful of the point that we will be unable to continue to subsidise facilities at the existing rate if we don't increase our income throughput.
Okay, can you take Jack then, Mark?
Thank you, Chairman. It's in page 329. First one, I see that the DVDs are going the way of the videos were a few years ago. That it's sad to see that that services will have no new DVDs for the amount of people that, I mean, libraries are community places. The places, I see that the reduction in library materials has been reduced. Now, over the last few years, we've seen the reduction in money going into spending on books being reduced drastically. And I'm not surprised that the customers are not coming in for it, because there's not the materials there that they once had. It's, as I say, libraries are not just they're a community resource. People go in there of all ages, and if we don't capture these youngsters going in for books or whatever, we may see them going the same way.
Chair, thank you. Library attendance in use of libraries, unfortunately, is declining across the Scotland as a whole. What we're proposing in here is in line with the national average. The reduction in spend on books is average 10% across the whole of Scotland. We're trying to address the decline I agree with the member in terms of capturing and engaging with the children early. That's why we've engaged with the Every Child a Member scheme, where we automatically enrol children in the library service, and hopefully we'll see the benefits of that in years to come.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask on page 331, what do you do to market the e-lending books? Just that I wasn't actually aware of it, so, and I've heard some other constituents saying the same, so just wondering how you market it.
Chair, marketing at the moment is very much done through the library website, and we try and make it as prominent as possible on the website. We do recognise that as the library service is evolving and changing, that we do have to place an emphasis and a focus on marketing in general to make sure that the public know what's available within the four walls, because it's much more than book lending, it's much more than DVDs, it's much more than e-lending. So I think very early on in the new year we have to start a real promotional campaign to highlight all the services that are available now, library services, customer services and registration services within those facilities.
Thank you, Chair. It's actually relating to the potential reduction in Profiles Plus as a sort of device to increase membership to the point where it will actually be more attractive and therefore generate more revenue. I'm just sort of curious how that sits with buildings that we manage but don't own, or own but don't manage, because I'm aware that, like, say, the KGV is now owned but managed by a different entity, but the Profiles Plus membership doesn't let you use it, for example. So I'm just sort of wondering, is that factored into the way we're moving in terms of how we manage our facilities, or how we do that, and also is the price to reflect that, and also is that going to be built into our relationship with the body that's going to be managing facilities in the future?
Thank you, Chair. The Profiles Plus membership relates to the leisure facilities that we as the council operate, and as you correctly outlined, with the example of the King George V and the transfer to Queen of the South, they now have a separate membership package that they offer to the customers there, and Profiles Plus doesn't apply in that regard. What this proposal is proposing to engage with the community on is the option of where we have any leisure sites that are experiencing falling demand, drastic reduction in numbers, drastic reduction in our income, that we incentivise that community to come back and use those facilities by offering discounted rates. Something we've not done before, because we've always operated on a harmonised basis across our region. We haven't been able to reflect that local demand or that local competition factor from other providers, and very much it would only apply to those council-operated sites.
So just to be extra clear, that the Profiles Plus is a region-wide membership for any council-operated facility, but it will vary potentially the amount of discount you might get. Will that depend on which facility you're using or where you come from? Or I'm just curious as to how that will actually work.
Thank you, Chair. Very sensible questions in terms of how it will operate. Very much engagement will influence it. We have spent a bit of time as officers considering some options to move forward here. What would be proposed that if there was to be a pilot introduction of a discounted price, because we have a site that is clearly falling in numbers, that the membership, the Profiles membership, would have to have an amendment to it that would only relate to that particular site. So if you have a falling number of members using that site, and we incentivise that site, that it is that site that you're taking out your Profiles membership for, i.e. you're not taking out your Profiles membership for a site here, but you can go elsewhere in the region.
Thank you. So in essence, it will simplify the system for everybody, and everybody will have access across the region to the same level of facility for the same price.
Again, through the Chair, influenced by the level of engagement and responses that we get back, What we need to try and test the market on is what do the customers and non-customers, very importantly, consider to be appropriate prices to be paying for them to be enticed to come and use our facilities, first and foremost. And what we need to move away from, in my opinion, is our standard harmonised set of fees and charges have restricted the potential development and growth on some sites because we have a differing level of provision across our region in terms of the sites available, the different types of kit that's available, and the demand and influencing factors in a certain community. So there would certainly be a proposal that through this engagement we investigate the options of a differing level of prices in differing sites.
Yeah, Chair, just moving on, Stephen refers to Profile Plus. I'm looking at 3.14 with particular reference to disabled groups, vulnerable groups, and everything else. And I'm looking here at finally whether there are no ongoing evidence that certain times usage significantly decreases and demand of service no longer remains. And I'm looking at 3.9 and 3.11, not so much in terms of the charges being made, but how we can utilise the buildings, the facilities that are available, and bringing in the disadvantaged groups, the disabled groups and everything else. And how can we do more to effectively utilise the buildings, like in the cinemas and where we make it available to disadvantaged disabled groups so that they get access to sessions before the actual main session with all the public there. And this is not about segregation, this is about providing for those who are disadvantaged, as is recognised in 3.9 and 3.11, where it says, nor does it focus on the requirements of our customers. These are customers. It's how do we and can we do more for the disadvantaged and disabled groups, not only in the buildings, but in some of our play areas and play parks where there are no charges. Can we do more in that respect? And I'm making reference particular to the west of the region.
Thank you, Chair. I would always hope we can do more in every aspect of the services that we deliver very much. We do continue to offer the easy access provision in terms of where we can get up to 50% off prices at that point of charge. An example of disability sport, we are very fortunate to benefit from 2 disability officers within the Leisure and Sport Service, and I would certainly happily have any conversation with the member if we've got specific examples in a certain area. I'll make sure that those staff are engaging with those groups if you've got examples. Thank you.
Happy to engage, Chair, in particular the Ryan Centre, but I'm happy to engage with you.
Okay. Can we accept the recommendations? Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 10, update on community facilities review. Members will recall that you took on board your comments at last meeting, and we agreed to a progress report brought to this meeting today. I'm pleased to see the progress we're making with community facilities review and the remaining 8 community facilities. Community facilities operated by local management committees has been a long-standing feature of life in Dumfries and Galloway, and so the progress we're making with establishing these new management committees is the right direction, and it reflects our commitment to working in partnership with communities. And I'm sure we all acknowledge the valuable work undertaken by the volunteers who run these facilities. Harry and Karen are here to answer any questions. Anything you want to add to the report?
Nothing to add at this stage, Chair.
Any questions? Jane?
Quick
John?
one on paragraph 3.7. It seems to me there is training available for management committees and trusts. Could that be extended to not simply the ones who are in the process at the moment? Because I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there's no reason why that couldn't through various colleagues within other departments. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just in relation to Appendix 2, which is not part of the current review. But, there just seems to be a disparity across the regions. There's out of the 18 that are managed by Dumfries and Galloway Council, there's 11 in Wigtonshire, which all seem to be small village halls. And I just wondered, why is the reason why they haven't been taken over? Or is it because of lack of capacity within these small communities?
Thank you, Chair. Happy to take that question. The reason that the Wigtonshire facilities are still run by Dumfries and Galloway Council, that's a historical issue and goes back to Wigton District days. There are one or two communities coming forward now who are interested in taking over their facilities, but as I say, it's very much a historical issue, and therefore moving forward we perhaps require to work with communities more.
Yeah, Chair, I think maybe, as Karen said, it's a historical one. I think in Wigton District Council days, they had foresight and actually gave the halls over free of charge. I think where the difficulty came in was on the harmonisation of all, or the unity authority, then the harmonisation of the halls that caused the problems. However, I do know in the Wigtonshire area that 3 of the halls are moving forward. Dromore, Sorby, New Luce, to some kind of management structure with the community. But in 3.16, in terms of Port Patrick, I think it's, and I would commend Karen for the work she has already done and the work that she intends doing in the new year, as it highlights in the report. The Port Patrick Community Council is a new community council in terms of its reconstituted after 2 years. Chair, I hope the committee will recognise that they do, or they will require a bit of time, as Karen has indicated, in terms of looking at the viability, looking at the financial feasibility of taking over the whole, and I think Karen's caught it well in that the public meeting that I attended, then the public did embrace the idea, but they do require that extended time beyond the period that the committee had set of having discussions by the 31st, an indication by the 31st of January with possible closure by the 28th of February. I think that we should endorse what the work of Karen and which is recognised there is no alternative in this one in Port Patrick for the community, and it is almost the hub of the community in terms of its whole waterfront and everything else. So I would hope the committee will accept the work being done by Karen and the moving forward.
Thanks again, Chair. It's just on those facilities that didn't form part of the review. I would imagine that in the interest of standardising across the region would be open to look at those to bring them into line with the ones that we've just done.
Thank you, Chairman. Just going to come back on the point Councillor Marshall made earlier. He's absolutely right that the reason why we are where we are is that in the first instance, the review initially looked at 29 facilities, and as the report indicates in paragraph 3.3, we're looking at these in a consistent manner. What both members are drawing out, I would suggest, is the fact that we therefore have the other 39 facilities. Now, what we're mindful of is we need to ensure we deal with the 29 at this stage. It would then be, at that point, we bring back a report to members on how we wish to proceed with the remaining 39, being mindful of the lessons learned. So I think the points are well made by Councillor Thompson and Marshall, and that's something we'll come forward with in due course. Clearly that's for member determination, but it's to highlight that indeed, yes, there is a situation where we have dealt with the 29 facilities on a consistent basis, but it's a bigger job to be done in the longer term. So the reason why these other 39 have not been dealt with is quite clearly they weren't part of the review agreed by.
Okay. Which is the proposals integration of libraries, registration customer service centres, Kirkcudbright. This report provides members with scoped options for the delivery and location of customer services in Kirkcudbright. The options open to us are summarised in paragraphs 318 to 320 of the report. Paragraph 39 outlines the decision of the Statutory Area Committee in relation to the facility being located on the ground floor of Dar Road. when this issue has been discussed at Stewart Area Committee, emphasised the importance of ensuring Council continues to provide library and customer services facilities in Kirkcudbright. It's important today that we take a decision that achieves that objective. And I think Harry and Karen are here. Then want to add to the report?
No thanks, Chair.
Questions? Jane?
Didn't even ask. Oh, Chairman, this has been such a hot potato, and there's been such anguish, really, in both the Area Committee and here, and really primarily in the town. I think what we've got to remember is that the real reason we're in this position now, having to take this decision now, is that the Sheriff Court was closed and became available, and it has now indeed been snapped up. So that's why we've got to take this decision now, quite apart from the fact that from the point of view of public money, we have said we wanted to bring together public services and make a saving. In addition to which, actually, what's going on at the moment is that the current library is really very cramped, and that staff do a fantastic job where they can, and they do provide a service, but it's in less than absolutely optimal conditions. The ideal, as you very well know from your position on the Area Committee, is that the Johnson School is the preferred option of the community. Were we in any other position now, I would say that we should wait, delay, and continue to wait for the community to lead that forward and bring an idea to the table to provide a position and a place for the library. That's the ideal situation. However, that's not what we've got in front of us. Customer services, Chairman, are currently closed over lunchtime. We are not providing an optimum service for the public. We are paying £22,000 over and above that, as well as not providing an absolutely ideal service. So, with really the utmost reluctance, because as I say, my preferred final solution has always been the Johnson School, but the timescales are not with us. I would suggest to the committee that we do go with option 3A, but I would also ask the committee very clearly to get some undertakings for the community, because there will be a certain amount of anxiety about this. The first thing is that the council would undertakes to continue to work with the community and with strategic partners to locate a corporate function and or a public service in the Johnson School when the time comes. So we are asking the council to continue doing what it's doing now, in essence, which is to support a community project. And the second part of it, and I think this is extremely important that it is minuted, Chairman, is that the council undertakes to build in a capital allocation, as it had already done for the Johnson School. So we would like to see that put into the system and to be replaced, because if you remember rightly, the gallery project took away that allocation, which was specifically for the Johnson School. So that's what I'm asking that we do at this stage. If we can have that minuted like that, I will, as I say, slightly kicking and squealing, be dragged to the cliff and kicked over and agree 3A in order to get some certainty for these particular facilities in the town. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think Councillor Maitland outlined some of the history regarding this one. I mean, Johnson School was first declared surplus to requirements in October 2010, and I think during that time the level of support and commitment council officers have worked with Kirkcudbright Trust to try and come up with a viable project I think has been ongoing up to the present time. And I would certainly say that whilst there's an absolute imperative to get a decision to have a integrated customer service centre that serves the public of Kirkcudbright that they deserve and also make the saving, that certainly doesn't preclude ongoing support and discussions in relation to any other options that are forthcoming from the community moving forward. In terms of capital allocation, I would certainly suggest that that would be something for the recognised capital allocation policy to consider. If members were minded to go down that route, I think it's something perhaps that CCS's committee's views could be incorporated into a future report to, I would suggest, Policy and Resources Committee that outlines the implications on the wider capital programme and indeed the availability of the wider capital programme. So on that basis, Chair, that would be my position.
Thanks, Chair. As it's already been said, it's been a long time coming, and there's been lots of issues on the way. I back the recommendations and also the comments of Councillor Maitland. There's certainly no intention to take the foot off the accelerator when it comes to Johnson School, and I know the Sederunt Area Committee are certainly behind some sort of project. It's very much a community-led project, which is the right thing, but I think that the recommendations that Councillor Maitland put forward ensure that the Council still work with that process to see a successful outcome for the building in Kirkcudbright.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've got no problem with the Council continuing to work with the project for Johnson School. However, personally, I'll require some considerable persuasion as to the financial sense of the Council getting rid of a building because it was no longer needed, and then placing facilities into that building for which we will have to pay rent and we will have to pay a management fee. It's hardly in keeping with the Council's decision to have fewer and better buildings and to stop renting premises elsewhere.
Can we move to the recommendations? We're happy to accept 2.1, 2.2 and include the 2.3 that our officers can continue to work with the people involved with the Kirkcudbright project. In terms of the matter of the capital allocation, that's for another committee, not us. So that'll be a matter for the policy committee if members want to. Okay, members happy with that? Okay, move on to item 12. The progress report on creative future, a sector-led approach to developing the arts in Dumfries and Galloway. This report provides members with progress on the Creative Future project and also seeks approval for the continued use of the existing strategic arts revenue budget in line with recommendations provided by the Dumfries and Galloway Chamber of the Arts on behalf of the arts sector across Dumfries and Galloway. Harry and Rebecca here. Anything you wish to add to the report?
Chair, just a few words. As the Chair has outlined, the report is brought to members to update them on the progress being made with the sector-led model for planning and delivery of strategic arts services, led by Dumfries and Galloway Chamber of the Arts under the banner A Creative Future. The model was agreed by the Council in 2012 and the development phase was completed in 2014-15. This committee last considered the model at its meeting on the 9th of December 2014 and at that point agreed to make the strategic arts revenue budget available to match fund bids made by Dumfries and Galloway Unlimited, the working name of the Chamber, to the Creative Scotland Open Fund. The committee also agreed that officers would report to area committee community meetings on the work of DGU at area level. As outlined within the report, this has happened. Increased inclusiveness and accountability is discussed in paragraph 3.5 of the report, and the extent to which the Regional Arts Fund and other commissions and initiatives contributes to council priorities in paragraphs 3.6 to 3.8. Members are also advised in paragraph 3.9 that the operating cost of the model in 2016-17 is budgeted to reduce by 22%. The projects supported by the Regional Arts Fund are detailed in Appendix 1 of the report. The fund directly enabled leverage of a further £396,000 into projects which it supported in 2015, with a further £430,000 drawn down by other projects supported by the model during the same period. It's a good return on investment in terms of bringing funding into the local arts economy, and it's proposed to explore further options for studying the impact of the investment in the future in conjunction with DGU and third sector Dumfries and Galloway. And I think another thing that is detailed within the appendix is the extent to which the funding has covered the whole of the region from Stranraer across to Langham. Members are asked to scrutinise the achievements of the new model, the return on investment achieved, and to approve continued use of the strategic arts budget as detailed in paragraph 318 to continue development of the model. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Chair, and scrutinisable on one particular point, and that's the commemorative munitions girl statue has been commissioned for Greater Springfield and East Riggs. Sorry? That's page, it's Appendix 1 in page 372. It's the top bullet point. As members will be aware, the amount of commemoration stuff that's been happening in Gretna has been sort of chaired by a local community organisation. And I've got no problem with, you know, Alan Thompson being involved in this, but I'm a bit concerned that there was been an award made. My understanding fully was that area committee and council, to a certain degree, has actually made this award, and it's been the subgroup looking at this particular thing is actually run by Councillor Karen Carruthers. So it's a bit, as you say, scrutinising is the right word to actually say. So whether the purpose of award and outcomes achieved today is actually focused on this particular group, the Commission's Regional Art Fund, I would suggest that that's actually on the local community group.
Thank you for that comment. What I was trying to do there was really give some of the outcomes from the work of Alan Thompson and the other area conveners. Because when I was looking through the reports that they produced, I could see the amount of time he'd been spending with the group and assisting. So that was really where that outcome came. But the actual funding award that the Regional Arts Fund or the Regional Arts budget put into it is into Alan's commission, not into the commission itself. It was really his role in supporting that group, and that's the role of the arts conveners, is to help and support, so to give a flavour of some of the things that the groups had achieved, you know, as a result of that report. You know.
Could just make a general point that having gone through this, and one thing I did notice in the last year or two, this council isn't getting the credit it deserves for money it puts into the arts. For instance, quite a number of things have happened, according to this report, where no mention was given of the money that was given by this council. I can think of 2 or 3 events in Dumfries where the people who were there were taking all the credit. Now, at one time, we used to get our logo on these things, so I would suggest that we make sure if we're commissioning anybody, or D&G Unlimited are commissioning anybody, our logo is there to show that this council is given a level of support. Because certainly in the last year or two, that's been slipping away, that certain bodies are getting all the credit for what's happening, and no acknowledgement made of the input by this council and its officers. So I think members agree that we emphasise that.
While I don't disagree with you at all in terms of making certain that it's understood that there is public money and effort going into it, I'm sort of thinking about the way that this was set up, you know, post DG Arts, and the idea is that it really is led from the bottom and led by the sector. So it's a terribly difficult one, Chairman. I fully understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree that we should have acknowledgement of public money, but got to be very careful about these things.
No, I'll make the point that I've seen things for Creative Scotland, because they make sure that the money they put in gets credited. I'm just emphasising that we should make sure our money gets credited. Good enough for Creative Scotland, they don't put in as much as we do to some of these functions. It should be good enough for us. Credit where credit is due. Members happy with the recommendations? Thank you. We move on to item 13, update on elected members' inquiry service. This report provides members with an update on the elected members' inquiry service and community council inquiry service and associated improvements undertaken as previously agreed by this committee. Kirsty is here to speak to the report if necessary. Anything you want to add, Kirsty?
Sorry, no, Chairman, nothing to add to the report.
Members get any questions? Happy to accept the report? Okay, thank you. Item 14. Duke of Edinburgh's Award in Dumfries and Galloway. This report updates members on progress with Duke of Edinburgh's Award in Dumfries and Galloway. And that this report provides details how the award contributes to the learning experience and outcome of young people in the region. Kirsty and Barry Fisher are here. Anything you wish to add to the report?
Nothing to add to the report, Chairman.
Archie?
Yeah, I think it's a good report and looking at opportunities in the future. Obviously, again, in my other role as the Armed Forces Chaplain, I look from cadets right through to veterans. And the Army Cadet Force has just recently been accredited with SQA accreditation. And they're doing a little project in Moffat Academy at the moment called Link Schools with Army Cadets. And they have Duke of Edinburgh's award assessors. I think perhaps there's a future opportunity that a discussion with the Army Cadet Force in the area, and there is a Link School officer called Stuart Gray, who you might want to talk to with regards that, where there might be some problems with assessing on certain aspects of the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme, but however, there could be an opportunity for one of the cadet instructors to come along, and because they've got the accreditation of the SQA, they can actually help that situation out. So it's an opportunity more than a question, and I hope we would take it up.
Certainly, Councillor will make contact with the individual you've referred to and see where we can support, and also the Duke of Edinburgh Award Association locally, which is a voluntary group of champions, if you like, for the award. I'm sure we'd be keen to hear more of that.
Thanks very much, and obviously welcome the work that everybody's doing. I am concerned, though, that if we look at page 410, that there's a number of young people put forward or started awards, but there wasn't actually, they weren't able to complete the process. Now, I understand that's because there's been, in some instances, staff shortages, and we very much rely on school teachers to do some of the training and testing, if you like, in their spare time, and we know just how busy everybody is now. The Duke of Edinburgh has always been supported by the Stewart Area Committee because we see the value in it, and we will continue to do that. What I would like to see is possibly a programme coming together where some people who have been through the Duke of Edinburgh in the past, or parents, whatever, get the opportunity to undertake training, and where we have issues or circumstances in Castle Douglas, Dalbeattie, Dalry, or whatever, where we don't get people having the opportunity to actually go through the testing. They can start in the project, but for whatever reason, they're unable to be assessed, where we can actually pull in people, because there seems to be plenty of parents that would be happy to get involved and maybe undertake training to allow more people to get through the full programme.
Thanks, Chairman. You're right, Councillor Carson, it is wholly reliant on volunteers, but that's, I suppose, the strength of the programme really in Dumfries and Galloway. It is fundamentally built on volunteers coming forward and helping young people go through the award. However, if you're aware of some parents, or certainly we would have contacts for the past participants, then certainly our role very much is to provide that training and that quality assistance, quality assurance check to help them get through the award. So we'll maybe have a chat with you specifically on the stewardship issues around how we could maybe take that forward.
Happy with that? Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm just going to add my thanks to all the volunteers, and also I noticed that there are some CLD staff that are actually doing it as well, and I'll be area specific here, especially the Newton Stewart and Stranraer ones, because when you look at the figures for both Newton Stewart and Stranraer, they hold up very well against any other ones that's actually listed. There are a lot of people actually starting every year, and there's a lot of people in both areas that are actually gaining awards every year.
We're happy to accept recommendations 2.1, 2.2. I have no further business. Thank you all very much for your attendance.